Okay, I think everything is all set up. Now we'll just give it a minute or two. Couldn't find any songs to play. What on earth are you talking about? I can't find any songs to play. Alright, fine. We'll go to lo-fi. Lo-fi always seems to have plenty of songs to play. I was feeling more classical today, but we'll take some lo-fi. Lo-fi is always a perfectly comfortable, chill approach. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you know, I have a hard time feeling anything other than nice and chill and relaxed when I got lo-fi going. So no problem there. We can work with the lo-fi. Just that nice smooth groove helps me kind of get into a creative space. Although I think that's as much association as anything else, because it's probably the most frequent background noise that I put on when I'm trying to do something creative. Just get some nice lo-fi tunes going. But whatever the cause, feels good. Gives me some good vibes, and I dig it. But alright, it's 6 after, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and do some writing today. It's later than I normally like to do for the writing streams. I'd prefer, well, really any of my streams, I prefer to do them closer to noontime around here. But I'm not too worried about it, because we still got a good stream going on, and the thing is I've noticed my view counts going up a little bit on people checking out the replays, which makes me happy. I'm glad to see that people are still interested in coming and checking me out, even if I'm not actively streaming at the moment. That's a good thing. I am glad for that. So with that in mind, we're going to do some writing today. Going to be finishing up our oh no, that's unimportant. As always, I got to keep my eyes on my work phone. Although the benefit of starting later like this is it's less and less likely that I'll be doing what I did yesterday on the stream, where I'm constantly having to check my work phone. You know, I probably don't have to worry about that as much today. It's getting later. Very few people are going to be reaching out to me to try and get any new projects done for the day at this point in time. People are going to be finishing up what they've already been working on. It'll be good. But yeah, so today we're going to finish up or at least I'm going to try to finish up our Abandoned Mine dungeon. Shouldn't be difficult. We've done most of the brainstorming for it at this point. Now it's just a matter of filling in the rest of the blanks. So I'm thinking it'll be good. But yeah, I suppose I've been trying to make sure I do like a little intro just to sort of establish where we are and what we're doing. So with that goal, that mission in mind, it is... What is today? Wednesday. It's Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. I'm EnviroBoy, and we are going to have some good times just cooling out and doing some writing. One of the things that's nice, I'm noticing a little bit of a form factor error there. Gotta keep it symmetrical. It's gotta be appropriately uniform for me. I'm big on procedure and uniformity. Especially with my writing projects, so that's what we're going to stick with here. No, I don't want any of those open. We just want to open up our Dungeon Painter Studio here so we can go ahead and do that, and then that. There we go. That's good. I like that setup. Okay, so we're going to open up here. We want our abandoned mine. Open that baby up. There it is. There it is. Alright. Yeah, this is kind of a nice thing. I'm glad to have some time to just sort of relax with my writing and let my brain kind of flow. And I'm already feeling some stress kind of melting off the shoulders a little bit from the day. This is one of the reasons that I absolutely love this hobby. And hey, kitty. Got our special fuzzy friend here. There's her tail. She's just walking, just passing through. But one of the reasons I really especially love doing some writing in the afternoon is, like, for my day job, I spend a lot of time really working with rigidity. I spend most of my time reviewing, making sure that facilities are adhering to rules, demonstrating that adherence in an appropriate, approved manner, following procedures, and all that kind of stuff. And while I am someone who appreciates procedure, I am also a creative person. So I oftentimes feel like I've got this kind of yin and yang situation going on, these sort of dueling aspects of my personality. And my job really requires just like hyper focus on that one side, right? That really sort of contained and process driven side, which is good. I like that. I feel comfortable with it. I feel productive with it. It's a good situation overall. But after a full day of working on that front, I really do oftentimes feel myself feeling very boxed in is maybe a good word. Very restrained, because there's not a whole lot of room for divergence within my job. Because as much as I love procedures, the procedures for my job are not procedures that have been determined by me. They're things that are established by the bureaucracy that exists, and I have to adhere to it. So one of my favorite things is, situations like where I'm at right now, where I've had a long day. It's been a busy day. I really, since getting up this morning at 4, excuse me, appropriate. Talk about getting up at 4 a.m. and I yawn immediately. That's fitting. But since having gotten up at 4 a.m., I have spent the entirety of today working my way through checklists. So it's been productive, but it has been, an exhausting almost 12 hours already. So this type of situation, this is why, for me at this stage of the day, being able to just sort of relax and breathe and sort of unchain my imagination and let it start really doing its thing, is one of my favorite things. So, and the reason I'm taking the moment to express that here is because I hope that people who maybe find this stream and are going through a backlog or something like that can sort of understand, and maybe just sort of I'll be putting to words what some people sort of inherently feel but don't really know how to define. I think that a lot of us struggle with that concept of like knowing that we feel something but not knowing how to explain it properly so that people can recognize and understand exactly what it is we're going through. And even for ourselves, it's much easier to understand our own selves if we can describe the things that we're feeling. I think sort of confusion and struggle for people come from not knowing how to describe things. And and I think I think for a lot of people there's a struggle in adapting to, say, a working world, and a struggle to find how to balance working world with a desire for fun, relaxation, entertainment, things like that. And I don't know, I'm feeling in a place today where I feel like I'm a good living example of where that balance can be found. You can express certain parts of your personality through your day job, but then if you adopt a hobby like this, it's not a matter of making time for the hobby. It's a matter of like people imagine like, oh, I don't have time to do this hobby, I'm too busy, and when the day comes to an end I just want to sit and veg out. But the thing is I often think that a good hobby is one that is both of those. It's a way for you to grow part of your brain, but also give you relaxation from the other parts of it that are working overtime throughout the day. So for me to sit here and be able to start letting the creativity, letting the imagination just kind of go, this is a good time for me. This is my relaxation, which is why one of the things that I love so much about just the concept of streaming, I really feel like I really feel like I'm just having fun. I'm not sitting here working, which I think is I live it's a great privilege in my life that I have the means to sit here and do this, even though even though it's just purely a hobby. I think a lot of people don't have that freedom in their lives. So, at any rate, that's enough waxing poetic. That's enough philosophy. We're not here for philosophy. We're here for monsters and dungeons. And maybe a dragon here or there. But not in this dungeon. So, let's go ahead and start imagining what the rest of this dungeon is going to be like. So, our first room, marker 1 here, we are trying to create a guarded entrance. And what we mean by guarded entrance, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have armed guards posted at the entrance. When I say guarded entrance, and I have it in my little formula here, when I say guarded entrance, what I really mean is an entrance that isn't just a simple walk in and you're in. You want to make sure that players earn every part of this dungeon. Every single thing that they accomplish in this dungeon, you make sure that they have properly earned it. So, and that includes just entering and making it into the dungeon. So, here we have a guarded entrance. And the first thing that I'm thinking of immediately when I look at this is I can see that we have a way in, a single hallway that leads to a single room. Now, the cool thing about that is that gives us a little bit of freedom to get extra creative with this hallway. And what I mean by that is what I'm thinking. So we're trying to create like a mine shaft or a cave that has been used for mining. And usually such caves and mines go down into the earth, oftentimes quite deeply. So what I'm thinking this gives us some freedom to do is create this hallway as a more three-dimensional component than what the rest of the dungeon looks like, given this this map. Hey, how's it going? How's it going? Welcome. Man, I'm gonna butcher your name every time. Welcome. Hey, welcome back, man. Glad to see you here. We're just getting started, and I was just kind of giving the rundown about what about how we're gonna start this dungeon. So for this guarded entrance, like I was saying, the fact that it's a singular hallway that leads to a singular room gives us a bit of freedom. And what I'm immediately thinking for this is we can give this some 3D vertical aspects. Namely, what I want to do is I want to make this a hill, like a sharp slope that goes down into the earth. And my vision is that it's going to have two features. There's on one side of this sloping hill in this hallway, we have like a staircase of sorts. And then on the other half, we have a rail system with a minecart. And my immediate thought is that the minecart is quicker, but prone to perhaps falling apart. Oof. Oh man, I am sore. I was at my kickboxing class last night, and I took a few shots, and my leg has a Charlie horse deeper than most I've had in the past that I can remember. And oh man, it's a welcome back to the sport, I'll tell you what. So if I wince a little bit, don't mind me. I'm not dying, I'm just in great pain. But back to on focus here. So I'm thinking the guarded entrance we're gonna make it a slope. So let's see here. The entrance to the this is we're gonna say a small cave opening on the side of a cliff on the island is land. Let's see here. This cave mouth leads directly to a steep slope that goes deep into the ground let's see here. Bisected into two Walkins. Okay. Walkins. I'll do my best to remember that. I'm terrible with names, but you've taken the time to explain it and give me phonetics, so there's literally no reason for me to for me to get it. Completely correct. Walkins. Okay. I can do this. I can handle that. So let's see here. We're going to say the slope is bisected into two methods of two methoids. That sounds like some sort of like supervillain drug user. I'm the methoid. I don't know. That's I don't know. That sounds like an idea I'll use later. It's bisected into two methods of traversing it. Use one of our fun colons that you use for lists. Traversing it. Set of damaged and in some places collapsed steps and a rail system with a cart attached to a crank system to, let's say, what I'm imagining is like the crank is attached to the cart and there's just a pulley, right? So there's a crank with some rope and a pulley, and you spin the you spin the crank on the cart, and it will either bring you up or down the hill, and it's the people in the cart that can control it. Almost like if you had a winching system on a Jeep, but it's man-powered, not Jeep-powered, because they don't have Jeeps. Not for at least another like 30 years in this world. So actually I'm going to go ahead and say with system with a cart attached that has a winch on it to pull it up or down the slope. Yeah, I think that covers it. Because the rest of it is going to be mechanical. So let's see here. I'm just going to do mechanics here. So it's helpful. I always find it's helpful to have just a description, almost a script that you can read to the players when they first enter an area. So that way you're not sitting there trying to improvise. It does end up sounding a little scripted when you do it that way rather than, narrative. But I prefer that to fumbling over my words. So that's usually what I go with. I have a description there, because the other thing that's handy about having the description first is it's the first thing your eyes will be drawn to once you reach your marker header right there. The first thing you're drawn to is right there, and so that's how you can sort of refresh yourself. And as the DM, I see, okay, I've got a marker here, but I don't remember what I put there. I just look for marker 1. Okay, the first thing, and then I can give that just a quick speed read myself before relaying the information to my players. So I do that, but then you want to have any sort of mechanical or functional information clearly separated, so that way you're not trying to read paragraphs upon paragraphs to manage what the players are trying to do. So for mechanics, we'll do if players take the stairs, players take the stairs, have them make an easy, I think I just want to go with dexterity. See, dexterity check. And then, so for these ones, the DC for an easy is going to be 10. It is very easy. There's no doubt about 10 being pretty low. But keep in mind, these players are still only level 3, which it's very easy for brand new players to get to level 3. It's once you get to level 3, that tends to be the threshold for it taking a lot of time to level up afterwards. So up through 3, we want things to be really easy. But the other thing about it too is I don't want my players to always fail everything. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. You want you want your players to recognize that you put in work. It helps them feel like there's a real world, not just it helps them feel like there's a real world. And the other thing that I think it helps with is it helps them feel like if misfortune befalls them, or something along those nature, just something imperfect happens to them, it helps them feel like it's still fair. Like I think I'm going to be referring to it a lot because it's a really good example that happened recently. This past weekend when I was playing with my group, they had their book of information. They had their book of like treasure hunting information, and they were speaking about this book in full earshot of a group of bandits. And they were just openly discussing. They have a book with information on where to find some different treasure. So the bandits naturally mugged them for it, essentially, and stole the book from them. And the thing about that is that's definitely a big misfortune. But because I had predetermined and sort of pre-written out a little description of what this village was like, none of them was surprised or upset about the fact that it happened, because they knew they were in a village that was composed entirely of bandits. So when it happened, they were just kind of like, well, that really sucks. How do we go about it? Rather than trying to argue with me. Which is an important thing as the DM. Not because I feel like I'm above arguing, but because if that's what the game turns into, that's less time spent playing the game and more time spent trying to hash out disagreements, and that's not what any of us are there for, right? It's meant to be a fun game with friends. So yeah, I don't want to be improvising everything all the time. And then going back to these mechanics, I don't want everything to be difficult all the time. They ended up in a situation where they lost their notebook. Them's the breaks. But the flip side is, that was a pretty big misfortune, so I'm hoping that we can give them some wins for the next few sessions moving forward to balance it. Because if players feel like, the thing is, like, if players feel like they're role-playing a Dark Souls, or rather a role-play version of Dark Souls, where everything they always do will result in failure, they're just not going to keep playing. It's just not going to be fun for them, and that's the last thing we want. So we're going to make this dexterity check easy. Have them make an easy dexterity to keep their footing through the collapsed parts of the stairs. Anyone who fails will fall down the steps. The steps. Gosh dang it. I don't want the D there. It's the only time I'll ever say that. How pitiful am I? I'm just sitting here laughing at my own jokes. Like, it's like having a laugh track. It's like I'm trying to tell you when you're supposed to laugh. Like, if I were actually funny, I wouldn't need to inform you of what the joke is. Um, let's see. Anyone who fails will fall down the steps at approximately the halfway point. Halfway point, taking. We don't want this to be too aggressively negative for them, but halfway down the steps, when we're talking about a diagonal that spans, what are we at? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, up to 75 feet. They're going to take some damage. They're going to knock their head at some point. So we're going to say we're going to give them 1d6 fall damage. Usually something simple like a fall, stick to the 1d4, but we're gonna add a little bit more risk because there's a few other opportunities for them to bonk their heads on a step or a stone or something. Now, one thing I'm noticing when I'm looking at this, I didn't address the fact that there are 2 openings here, and I just want to make sure I describe that. Halfway down, there is a door. There is a, let's see here, a gap in the wall that leads to the caverns of the first room of the mine. And we're going to do area, or let's do marker 8. This opening is roughly 30 feet from the ground floor, and entering marker 8 through here. Well, let's see, that's going to go into mechanics. That's going to go into mechanics here. So I'm just going to cut that, and then MV. There we go. So let's see here. Through here, we'll need to make. We're gonna call it. We're gonna make that an average athletics, or average difficulty check. We're gonna let them be creative. We're not gonna require it be athletics or anything like that, because this is something that players like. One of the things that I really try to do is not over require specific types of checks. I don't like always telling them, no, you can only make this type of check or that type of check, because I like when my players use their own creativity to try and problem solve. I don't want to tell them how to problem solve and leave it up to chance. I want them to try and figure it out. So, and usually the best way I find to differentiate when I should tell them what to do versus when they need to figure it out is if there's something that is like a hidden peril, I'll tell them what they need to do. But if it's an obvious challenge, I let them decide. So going down the stairs counts as a hidden peril because no one as a baseline examines the stairs that they're about to ascend or descend just in case there's a missing step. People take staircases for granted. We do in our daily lives. When was the last time you thoroughly examined a staircase to make sure it met OSHA standards before you stepped on even the first step, right? You don't do that. You just say, oh, stairs, and you climb or you go down. We take them for granted. And so in that situation, because it's sort of a hidden peril, it's just a matter of me telling them what they need to do to avoid that peril. But for something like this door, no one looks through a door 30 feet up and says, like, this is normal, and just jumps down, right? You assess and you make a decision. So because this is not an invisible type of peril, I make sure that I give my players room to be creative. So let's see. We're working on our DC. We're going to make this an average one, a DC 11. Again, not that hard. A little bit more difficult. But the important part, especially this early in my players' levels, up through level 5 really, I'm more so trying to encourage them to find their own solutions as opposed to give them challenges that really make it tough for them to succeed. You know, a DC 10, that's really at worst a 50-50 unless you are so bad at something you have a negative modifier, right? And I want that to be easy early on because I want them to just sort of get the idea of how rolling works when you make a roll, things like that. I mean, we're at level 3 with this one group, but they're all new players, and they still ask me, wait, which die do I roll for my attack? It's the D20. It's been the D20 all like 50 times you've done it so far, but you know, they're still trying to learn those instincts. So these early levels are all about trying to provide players opportunities to be creative and learn how the game works. When we get to higher levels is when I'll start throwing the DC 15, DC 18, DC 20s at them for their challenges, because at that point in time they'll know their characters well enough and they'll know the way the game works well enough to be able to figure out, oh, we should be strategic about how we do this. Who's good at this thing? Who's good at that thing? Who has the highest benefits, right? And like that's when they start getting spells that they can cast to offer benefits. So that's kind of my metric and my benchmark and why I have these incredibly easy DCs, because I don't want to discourage my players too soon. I want to make sure that they're really heavily invested before I convince them to quit. So yeah, to descend safely. If they fail, I want to make this one 1d8. Oops, my 8 key needs some attention. I gotta make sure all the pins are installed properly. It's been a little sticky for a while. They fail 1d8 fall damage. We're talking about falling 30 feet. I'm not gonna let that just be, you know, onto a crash pad below. That's not how this works. So that's where that is. Now the other thing, though, just for the sake of conceptual symmetry, we're going to put this after here. Players take the cart, have one of the riders, let's see here, hey, how's it going, Zelmond? Glad to see you here. We're working on hopefully finishing up this dungeon today. And I'm trying to figure out the best way at this exact moment how I want to make this cart potentially dangerous. Players have one of the riders roll 1d20. So now here's a situation. This isn't going to be a check. This is just going to be, like, it's not going to be a skill check. It's just going to be a luck check. One of the riders roll 1d20. On a natural 1. Fall damage is generous for a 30-foot drop. Yeah, you know, I could harsh it more for them, but this is a level 3, and I don't know. I tend to be more generous on those things because for these types of falls and everything, I like to just irritate my players, especially when they're lower levels like this, because I'm kind of keeping in mind that it's a new group. I don't want them to run out, like, I don't want them to die on the first thing they try in this dungeon. You know, I was explaining just a short few minutes ago that these early levels are more about them learning how to play D&D, and once we get past level 5 is when we really start having them learn how to survive D&D. So, you know, I'm giving them 1d8 fall damage, just, you know, only that for a 30-foot drop. It's, I mean, you know, potentially 8 damage depending on which character, especially if it's a magic user at level 3. That could be a third of their health, you know. So that's, I'm not too upset about it being only that. We'll have plenty of time to beat the piss out of them later on. Plus, this is a big dungeon, and we'll see. There's going to be plenty of other perils for them to fall into. Hey, thanks for the follow, Twilin. I don't know. I probably got it right in one of those tries, but regardless, disregard my inability to pronounce anything ever. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. So yeah, so we're sticking with lower damage, and we're gonna go, like, I like to go by death by 1,000 cuts for my players. that's kind of what I'm feeling for this dungeon. This one, Tulin. Okay, Tulin. I will do my best to remember that. I definitely tend to be a bit more generous for my players for these types of things. Like I say, I like to death by 1,000 cuts my players. I don't like to one-shot KO them. I like them to have a lot of chances to make mistakes and learn how to correct those mistakes. Because the other thing, too, is it's really crafty. Because one thing I've definitely found in all the years I've been DMing is when you don't take a lot of health at once, they don't notice themselves getting into trouble. And so they tend to end up in situations where they're like, uh-oh, we just walked into a boss battle, we have no more health potions, and we have no more spell slots to heal ourselves. So that's just that's what I like to do. That's what I like to do. So, sorry, I just got thrown off because the music had words, and I was like, shit, someone's talking in my ears right now. I'm going to fast forward that because that's throwing me off. What are the main enemies of the mines? So the main enemies, so we've got our 4 enemy types around here. It's we're going with a very Lovecraftian aesthetic, so to speak. So we've got a flying horror is going to be sort of the boss of the dungeon. We have a little colony of Dolgrim. I'm going to throw them in that little corner down there. That's just going to be like a little colony, like an offshoot to a colony that they'll guard, and players can get themselves in trouble with that. We have some Bone Whelks wandering around, and we have young Kruthiks running around. So very, very icky is the word I keep thinking of for them. So let's see here. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going for. So let's see here. So we're gonna go with our going back to our entryway here. We've got a nice steep slope here with stairs that are kind of falling apart that they can tumble their way down. A hole that they can get themselves in trouble in if they're being stupid. The other reason too that I don't, well, I guess actually it's more a point to what you're saying about me being generous. The fact is, there's a completely safe way to take the stairs to get into that same room. So I could very well go very harsh on if they decide to take the stupid way and go in through the gap that is just an opening in the wall as opposed to being an actual functional entrance. Yeah, you know what? And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make it 2d8. That's actually, you've convinced me, Zelman. We'll go ahead and be a little bit harsher on them for that. So there we go. There's our midpoint. So on a natural. So anyway, talking about using the cart. Oh, let's see. What do we got? Never played old school rules. People dying each episode. Yeah, no, that's I think there's a place for a campaign like that. For a very Dark Souls-esque campaign where people die a lot. And actually, I personally, if I were ever to be a player, I would love that. The one of the reasons I shy away from that, though, is I like my players to get involved in their characters and the backstories, and I like to really have a good, strong narrative involved in the games. I don't like my games to just be pure dungeon crawls. There's a place for that, as we can see with what I'm making right now, but I like for there to be a lot of narrative involved. I think that's what gets players invested, and I very often receive feedback on that's what people really like. So I like to try and offer up stuff. And actually, with one of the groups that I'm playing with right now, we had a discussion about permadeath options, and they leaned very heavily towards, if a player dies, incorporate mechanics so that the player could potentially be resurrected in different ways. So I've workshopped a few with this group, a few sort of homebrew approaches. Kobolds for a death of 1,000 cuts, absolutely. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. See, and I do use kobolds a lot, but my worry is always that it just gets boring for players if all they fight is kobolds. So I like to really mix up the enemies that I have, and that's why I decided for this one we're gonna go very very Lovecraftian on the approach here. Hero points. It's not something I use, so I don't really have much experience on hero points. So I can't really speak to that. I don't know if anyone else in the chat has experience with hero points, but it's not something I've utilized in the past. So I can't offer much in the way of thoughts on that. So let's hear. You guys keep getting me distracted. You guys have such cool ideas and cool comments and stuff. I keep getting distracted. I'm trying to. Let's see. I gotta make this cart. So I already know exactly what I'm gonna make. I just gotta write it down. On a natural 1, the rope breaks and the cart goes careening downhill. So I just, and like sometimes I like to just throw bad luck at my players like this. Anyone in the cart when it hits the stone wall at the end will receive. So this is another one. I kind of want to make the damage roughly equivalent to if they were to just fall. So I might go consistent and just stick with 2d8 fall damage. Let's see here. Sorry. There's a buzz on my work phone. Nothing important, though. Nothing. Well, I shouldn't say that. My work is important, but it's nothing urgent. That's the word for it. Yeah, I'm going to stay consistent. We're going to go with 2d8 damage. 2d8 crash damage. Let's see here. So, okay, so that gives us our sort of guarded entrance here. Our guarded entrance is going to be this main hallway here. So now the next step here, so now there's 2 approaches to filling all this stuff out, this template that I have. There's 2 approaches to filling it out. I can either go, walking wise through it, or I can just go in order. Personally, I prefer to just go in order, because now we're going to do all of our combats. So it's nice to be sort of in combat encounter building mode. So I'm just going to copy this so that we can then just paste it a few times. So we need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, the death, I don't know. Like I say, I like the death by 1,000 cuts just because I've noticed, not just because, but like one of the biggest reasons I've noticed that there's like I say, one is it lulls players into thinking, like, oh, it's fine. They don't do a whole lot of damage. Oh, we'll be fine. And then suddenly they're in the middle of a boss battle without any resources, and then they're really in trouble and they have to think about running away because they ran out of resources by the time they got there. The other thing that I find is I've always found that I am much more likely to get complaints and pushback from players in instances of massive one-shot damage. Players don't like that. And I get it. No one does. When you're playing a video game, you hate when, an enemy can get a one-shot kill on you. That's why Dark Souls can be so rage-inducing. Yeah, exactly. 1,000 cuts can make them panic more. If you have like a horde of small enemies, they really panic about that. But it's sort of like a known. They're more aware of that danger. If an enemy just like one shot makes a player unconscious, not only are they panicking, but like if a player is going to get upset, that's one of the best ways to induce that. And I don't like to anger my players. 1, because I play with my friends and I don't want to make my friends upset. And 2, because who wants to deal with that? Oh, gosh, when they complain like that. So I lean much more towards gradual, painful death than just getting smacked upside the head and dying immediately. So at any rate, working on marker number 2 here. So marker number 2 is going to be up here. So this is one of our combats, and this is where I put the easy combat. So when I'm doing combats, I do I always, with dungeons, I try to have 5 combat 5 potential combat instances aside from wandering monsters. Wandering monsters tend to be their own thing. But for the 5 planned combats, I do an easy one, and a medium difficulty, hard difficulty, a deadly one, and then I also incorporate a boss battle of some sort. And so that's another reason why I don't try to lay on the sort of incidental trap damage too thick, because there's going to be plenty of combat for players to figure that out. Work on interpersonal skills. Man, I get plenty of work on interpersonal skills with my job working with the public. I don't need to practice that. I need to not practice that when I'm with my friends. Like, for example, today, trying to work with a facility that wants to not have to present their records as often as they have to, because they just don't feel like it. There's literally no reason. They still have to keep the records. They just don't want to give us the records regularly. It's like, why? What does it matter? You just have to send us an email. That's literally it. It doesn't cost anything except for the 10 minutes it takes to compose an email. They didn't want to do it. Yeah. Having the tiered difficulties, I think is really good. It creates different it creates different aspects or different sort of danger levels for them to encounter. And if they encounter the easiest one first, it can lull them into a false sense of security. Hey, how's it going there, Swifting Wolf? I'm doing okay. Hopefully you're doing okay too. We're doing a little bit of writing here. So a little bit of dungeon building. So yeah, so for this easy combat, we're looking at our enemies is probably mostly just going to be a little I play a little fast and loose with the D&D I play fast and loose with the D&D rules as written, as far as like lore and what creatures will tend to do. So for the Kruthiks, even though they might be, do I include dangerous wandering monsters? Yes, I do have a wandering monster aspect, but I limit that to being if they choose to take a long rest in the dungeon. When they're in the dungeon, there's a chance that they will encounter wandering monsters. When they're actively going through, I tend to not do wandering monsters, and that's 100% because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to keep track of movement of monsters while I'm also trying to keep track of what the hell they're doing. It's 100% a laziness, ease of existence thing for myself. So let's see here. So for the monsters here, we're going to go ahead and so here's where I start here's where an example of where I utilize tools to do some of the work for me. One of the things that I think is really valuable is for a DM to not always reinvent the wheel when there's a tool that can work for them. In this situation, I'm going to utilize Kobold Fight Club to help me establish a composition for an easy, medium, and difficult combat encounter. So basically all I ever do for that is I just have it established random easy, and so it puts us with a quarter, half, and 1/8. It's got a layout for the challenge rating. So then all I'll do is I'll go into here and remind myself quarter, half, 1/8. So we're gonna have two. So we're gonna have them encounter 2 of the young Kruthiks, 1 Bone Whelk, and 1 Dolgrim. And I'm tempted to not have it to not utilize the Dolgrim, because I had thought about giving them, having the Dolgrim be relegated to this little area. But where my brain is at right now is, fuck it, my players probably aren't going to look into it that deeply, so I'm not going to look into it that deeply either, and just sort of say like, yeah, they exist here, that's what their home is, but sometimes they wander around and interact with the other creatures around here. I don't know. Just, you know, I'm okay with utilizing a little bit of suspension of disbelief here for the sake of producing something fun for them to deal with. So, we're going to say, so first I got to describe the room here. So this room, all of the rooms are going to be pretty mundane as far as what's in there for them to look at, because we're in a mine. It's a cave. Everything is stone. Everything's rocks. So let's see here. So we're gonna do, so just a description. Another room. Let's see. Another cavernous area in the mine. Gaps in the stone walls reinforced by aged and rotting timbers. Let's see here. Lead in 3 different directions. Let's see here. West, south, and a third in between. So even though I present my players with this map always, I like to just sort of offer them a little description about where all the doorways are, almost like I'm trying to make like a, you know, one of them old school computer text adventure games or something like that. Just if you explain it, it sort of gives players an understanding of what they're looking at. And I always try to use north, south, east, west, because you just put a compass rose on the map. Whatever map you're using, whether it's Roll20, whether it's a poster or something like that, like an actual battle mat, you just put a little compass rose on there. Everyone always knows what you're talking about. You don't have to worry about left or right being relevant based on where around the table anyone's sitting, anything like that. So, so now we're going to go ahead and describe our enemies. And all we're going to do is, let's see, we're going to say 2x, 2 times the young Kruthix, and all I do is I copy and paste. I always include the information, me personally, on my notebook. I always include the information, excuse me, regarding the challenge rating and the experience points that they can earn, just because that way I'm doing less scrolling and less fumbling with my notes when players finish a combat encounter and want to know how much experience they got. So then we've got one bone whelk, and then 1 of the Dolgrims. And that's a good composition too for the for what will likely be what will very likely be the first combat that they encounter. You know, because when you follow the paths, we enter 8. They have 2 options. They can go to 7, which is not a combat room, or they can go to 2, right, which is where they'll encounter that one. If they go to 7, they can then go back to 2, go down to 10, which is not a combat room, or go to 4, which will be a combat room. So there's a very good chance they'll encounter this one first. So I like that being the easy one, and having a wide range of what the enemies are, even if it doesn't necessarily make lore sense. From a game standpoint, it is a really good option because it'll kind of familiarize them with what else they'll see, in this dungeon. There's nothing wrong with utilizing a few game mechanics to try and, you know, clue people in on what to expect. So then the other thing I always do is I always just have a quick bulleted list of any rewards they'll find. So rewards, in total they'll be able to get 200 XP, and I always do 200 XP to split here. That's the XP that the monsters are worth. That's what they can get. I don't goof around too much with the recalculated experience and stuff like that, just because with between wandering monsters, between clearing out dungeons and stuff like that, there are ample opportunities for people to get experience and stuff like that. There's no reason to get it too complicated in that. Players will earn the experience at the rate they gain experience. They'll level up when they level up, and no one will really think much else of it beyond like, hey, I have enough to level up. So no sense making it more complicated than it needs to be, I would say. Now, potentially, there's other rewards that can be gained. I tend to be pretty stingy on the rewards coming from enemies. I'm not a big fan of people being able to find, 50 gold in the pockets of an enemy or something like that. And I don't have every enemy having a valuable weapon or something like that, or valuable armor. I'm not walking around with like $800 in my wallet. Most people aren't. I've got a couple bucks in my wallet, and maybe my shirt is nice if you're into this, if you're into this style, right? Like, I try to think about it that way. Especially with monsters, they're not going to have anything. A Kruthik's not walking around with gold. It doesn't understand what that is. It doesn't give a shit. Dolgrim, what kind of economy are those little troglodytes using, right? Like, these little homunculi creatures, there's no reason for that. And so I as much as it disappoints players, I don't like giving them rewards that way. Because the other aspect of that is within this dungeon, there is plenty of treasure to be found. So really the treasure for beating up the monsters is the experience points. However, because I have a lot of players that really enjoy trying to turn D&D into Skyrim and want to be able to craft, we do utilize some very rudimentary crafting systems. And so I will say materials for poison making can be harvested from the bone whelk or the Kruthik because they're gross and diseased. I like to give myself little jokes in my notes too, just to make it fun to go back and be running D&D campaigns, because I get to have fun too, even as the DM. It might be for everyone else, but I get to enjoy it too. Damn it. With nature or medicine check of DC, we're going to make it kind of difficult. I know I'm pretty generous with the skill checks here, but a DC 12. So if they want to try and harvest monster bits for making icky yucky potions, by all means, I don't have a problem with that. Because they can't make anything particularly powerful. They can't make anything they couldn't buy in the shop. And it takes a fair number of resources and a fair amount of downtime spent brewing the potions. I don't find it makes it overpowered. And even if it did make it overpowered, well, I'm the DM, and I can always just make things more difficult if I find that they're having too easy of a time. So, Neener, take that. Okay, so our next combat, our medium combat, going to follow the same formula. That's going to be right there. So, unfortunately for them, they have a string of combats right in between them and the only way to get to their final goal, which is right here in room 6 is kind of where it is. Enjoy world building as a DM, but then also improvisation with NPCs. Yeah. So NPCs, I do a lot of improv with. Absolutely, I do that. I love doing that. I love giving goofy voices to NPCs. The only thing that I've learned is improv with the personality and how they respond to players and stuff like that. But the flip side is I never ever just randomly introduce an NPC that I haven't pre-planned, because if there's one thing I've learned with the players that I've played with, they will always assume that NPC is the most critical NPC they've ever encountered, and they will always want some form of backstory and consistency with them. It doesn't matter what the NPC is. It can be the most mundane general store individual who's just like, yep, he uses this voice, which is basically my voice, only a little lower. His name is Bob, and he's picking his nose. They'll be like, Bob, what's your story? Where'd you come from? What kind of jobs do you have? Can we turn you into our champion? Like, they always will do that. So if I introduce an NPC, it's with the full intent of that NPC existing for a while, and then I'll just be present. I'll be pleasantly surprised if they decide to just leave it alone. Do I use reaction roles? Are you talking about like mechanics reactions, or I'm assuming that's what you mean. Like, and I'm assuming you're talking about like, oh, this thing is the NPC on the spot. Yeah, yeah, right. So I'm assuming, like, are you with the are you talking reaction roles like mechanics, or reaction roles as in like how an NPC reacts to players? Taking notes afterwards. I'm not following. I'm sorry. I'm being dense right now. I'm not following I'm not following the train of thought that you're on right now. Of NPCs to PC conversation. No, I don't use roles for that. I try to, like I say, I try to just have NPCs be pre-planned existing NPCs, and I always give them a very basic personality. Just a very basic personality in terms of, are they agreeable? Are they a butthead? Are they smart? Are they dumb? I know. Hi, kitty. I know you're starting to get hungry. It's not quite your dinner time yet, though, so you just go ahead and hang out here. Show everyone your pretty tail. Yeah, no, I am very meticulous with planning. So anytime there is an NPC, it's sort of predetermined where that NPC will be. And so I give them very basic rudimentary personalities, and then just have them react to that. For example, this past weekend my players encountered a city of bandits. Like, it's a bandit city that it's just a bunch of people who are wanted for various crimes such as murder and whatnot. Run from the popo and hide. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I definitely do take notes during and after, and add those to NPCs based on what did or didn't happen. But like I was saying, like, you know, they were in a city of bandits, and so I knew all of the bandits in that little town. I had sort of made up a list of all of the important bandits that they could encounter, and I gave them basic things like, this bandit is, this particular individual is really dense, not very smart, and quick to anger. This bandit is, you know, this, that, and the other thing. So if I throw a random NPC at them, I at least have a basic idea of how they'll react. And so it just makes it easier for me to not always be improving, and a lot of the reason I do that too is because I find that if I'm improving, I have a few archetypes that I recycle over and over again if I'm improving, rather than taking at least 2 minutes to think about how a character reacts to anything. It's my personal style, though. That's not a right or wrong way to do it. That's 100% my personal style, and I encourage anyone else to find their own style. So let's see here. I'm gonna flesh out this room, and then I'm gonna take a quick pause, quick bio break for myself before I continue. I'm planning on streaming at least till 5 today, but I have been sipping on beverages all afternoon, and I need to visit the Wiz Palace soon. But I want to get this room done here. So this room is gonna be, we're just gonna say a smaller cavern, almost more of an enlarged passageway with tunnels leading to the east and west. Alright, that's all we need. That's really all we need for the description here. Like I say, this is not an elaborate dungeon in terms of appearance. This is very much a... Yep, it's a big network of caves. You see a lot of cave walls and shit. not very appealing appearance-wise, but that adds to the aesthetic of the Lovecraftian horror. Everything is the same. Everything, it's very much designed that in a different game than D&D, this dungeon would be one that a player could get lost in easily. That's sort of my thought process for this. So enemies, my reliable, complicated thing. We're going to go ahead and then go to random medium. So we don't have any CR1s, so we're just going to do it again. No CR1s, do it again. There we go. So we've got 3 halves and 3 quarters. That's what we're going to do. Oh, what do we got? What do we got? Last night DM on stream killed the PC. They were wandering monster checks soon after. Bandits, which the DM determined were the new PC's buddies. Nice. Yeah. That's fun kind of stuff that I'll do from time to time. Although even that kind of stuff. So when I start a game, I never require it, but I heavily encourage my players to provide for me some basic lore for their characters. Just something very simple and basic. It never needs to be complicated, but just like an idea of like where did they come from, what was, like things like that. And then and I also encourage them to provide for me some ideas about past acquaintances so that I can do exactly that kind of stuff. For example, one of my players came from a pirate ship. Totally going to have him interact with his past crew. And depending on how they approach things, will that past crew be friend or foe? I don't know. We'll see what happens. And for that, it's kind of like it's going to more so be on the players whether they're friends or not, because I've already thought of what these NPCs are up to, and so depending on if they are in league with or in competition with this past pirate gang will heavily determine that. Because for me, the world building is really the hobby. D&D kind of comes second to that. So I tend to be very meticulous in building and designing my world. I really like things to be planned out, and I really like things to be like I like to have okay. So just to because now we're talking about entire worlds. Let me pull up my world map. Slowly, eventually, one of these days. My poor computer needs to be updated so bad. I'm trying to update my computer. I'm trying to upgrade it. Unfortunately, graphics cards are just a little hard to come by right now. So here's my world. Here's my world. Let's bring our zoom here. You can see the level of detail as we go down and down and down. So this is my whole world that I'm working on, and for me the hobby is I am creating a snapshot in time of this whole world, and playing D&D is players interacting with what I've placed in this world, and I design things through a lens of D&D, but so I design things through that as I'm constantly writing and updating this world. But essentially all of this is pre-created, and it's just waiting to be encountered by my players. I put in NPCs who need things, who want things, who are trying to accomplish things. I put in villains. I put in heroes. I put in lore. No, not actually using Incarnate. This is from a tool that I use. I'll pull it up. Asgar is the tool that I use. It's a generator, and what I did for creating that world is I just let it kind of create a random world, kind of like what you can see here. I just randomly generated one, and then I have heavily modified it. It started off something like this, but you can rename things, right? You can rename things. You can modify coastlines and stuff like that with all the tools here. That's the tool. That was the baseline. Yeah, we can leave that page. That was the baseline. And then I have been, ever since I first generated a world, I have been heavily modifying it. Is what I've been doing. But yeah, so that's what my process is, and that's really what I'm doing here. Is I'm in my brain, I'm world building. I'm just I love the sepia too. The sepia is by far the coolest map effect, in my humble opinion. But yeah, so that's essentially what I'm doing here. Is I'm creating a world, and I let myself kind of be a little bit loose on some things. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Calm down there, Matt. I let myself be a little loose on some things, like I say with like the enemies in the dungeon. I curate the enemies, but in terms of which enemy is where in the room, I let that be a little more loose, a little more game mechanic than like hand placing where each one would be based on exactly what they're trying to do at that minute in time. I don't get that detailed with it. But that's essentially what I'm doing. So to give you an idea also of scale, so you saw how big the map is and zooming in, this is the island that I'm working on right now. And I'm putting I'm putting 5 functional dungeons on this island essentially. Well, four functional dungeons on this map, and then there's a whirlpool that leads to a bottom of the ocean type of dungeon that I'm gonna create in a little bit. That may or may not be encountered. And so this is how I design my world. I just fill out the world, and then players will provide me some ideas, and then I'll maybe add an NPC here or there to get them started, and then the rest of the game is basically them just going through, exploring, and interacting with the world. That's how I design it. That's what I do. That's what's fun for me, and that's what keeps the hobby fresh and fun for me. I find modules to be more work than they are fun, because as a player it feels like something to encounter, but for me it feels like a textbook I have to read. I have to read and memorize it, and I'm tested every time we play by my players encountering things, and I have to remember what happens when they encounter this, that, or the other thing. So that's what my approach is. That's what I'm working with when I pull all of this stuff up. And so for me, that's why random NPCs have less of a place, because whenever I let my players encounter something, it's just it's something I've already made. It's something that exists. Like I say, it's a character that needs something. Charybdis. I'm not following that. I'm not following that. It's probably me being dense. But yeah, so let's see here. Where was I? Enemies. Oh yeah, we just got to give the rewards here. Rewards. So again, we just give them their experience points. This one's 450. XP to split. Can harvest icky bits from the bone whelks for potions and crap. There we go. That's what we do. Oh, I see what you're saying. It sort of, I hadn't thought of that explicitly, but I am familiar with Odysseus and all of that stuff, which is probably where the idea came from for me. I have spent so much time reading up on so many different lores, from ancient lores and myths to modern sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that, that I have so many things. I'm willing to bet 80% of the stuff that I've created was accidentally plagiarized from some other idea that I received in the past from somewhere else, But like, I don't know, I'm definitely a proponent too of most created things begin from a previously existing idea that someone has then taken and modified to make their own. So I don't worry too much about that, and it's also why I don't worry too much about sharing all of my ideas out here for other people to take, because man, I don't care. I'm just trying to have fun and have a little hobby here. So take my ideas. I don't care. I'm not publishing these. No one wants to pay me money for this crap. So yeah, no, okay, yeah. When you're talking about the whirlpool and with Iliad and Odyssey and all that type of stuff, yes, very very similar concept, or at least very similar origins. Okay, so I finished that room. I really need to take a break. I'm going to disappear for just like 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. And I had intended to try and finish this dungeon before 5 o'clock, but I have a lot of rooms to do. So we'll come back and we'll try and blitz and get some stuff done. But yeah, I need to take a few minutes to be a human with biology, and I will be back I'll be back, like I say, in 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes absolute tops, trying to keep it closer to 5 minutes. So sit tight. I will be right back, as you are about to see on my fancy screen. So fancy. Look at how professional that looks. So I'll be right back. Coming back, coming back, coming back. I'm back. Okay, I'm back. I also took a second and fed the cat because it's getting close to her dinner time, and she would be all up in my grill if I didn't feed her on time, because what the hell else does she have to do with her time except bother me because she's hungry? So, okay. Alright, so, I gotta say, we're gonna spend the next half hour or so, I'm gonna try and marathon my way through this. I wanted to try and get this dungeon done today. I mean, my goal was to get the dungeon done this week, so we've got another writing stream on Friday to get it done. But if I can get it done today, then we can spend some time having fun with just lore and background stuff on Friday, which is always one of my favorite things. Okay. So we need to do. How many times can I say "so" in one disjointed sentence? We're not going to find out because I'm a good Englisher, and I recognize when I'm repeating myself and mix it up. Okay, difficult combat. So now we're going to do the difficult one. Same thing as with everything else. So marker 4. Let's see here. This large. You know what? Let's go ahead and give this one a little bit of intrigue. Just hold up. There we go. This large cavern has remnants of minerals that were yeah, please don't keep track. I don't need that embarrassment in my life. Trust me, I'm hard enough on myself as it is. Let's see here. So this large cavern has remnants of minerals that were never mined before. Never mined? That were never harvested. Fuck it, I'm not gonna mess with the grammar there. That were never harvested prior to the abandonment of the caverns. Bits of metal ore, glitter if any source of light enters the room, looking like millions of spider eyes lining the wall. We'll just do that and see if any players take that too literally and freak the fuck out before they take a closer look and realize that's not what's happening. Let's see here. Okay, so now we need to do our enemies. Again, my trusty method. That's very that's very resource heavy on my brain. It's not resource heavy at all. Nope. It's got the CR1s. It's got CR1s. I want to avoid CR1s if we can. Alright, fine. I'll do it on my own. Forget it. Let's see here. We're gonna do that right there. Wonder if that was part of my issue. Hold on. No. Okay. Fine. Max CR. Here we go. Max CR 1/2. That'll solve the problem right there. I thought that would solve the problem right there, but it didn't. It's still using. Here we go. 8 quarter CRs. That'll do. That'll do. That'll work for me. I'm so determined to always use the system that I'm like afraid to improv away from it. It's like I've already established this is the way I'm doing it, so now I gotta commit. See, how many did it say? How many did it say when I wasn't paying attention? Was it 8? Hold on. There's a very easy way to solve this, isn't there? I can just look. Yes. Wait, why did it set it to medium? I wanted random hard. We're gonna give it 9. We're giving them 9. Stupid machine. All right. Well, I lucked out because my 8 key is garbage. 9x. I copy it. Yep, 9 bone whelk. Boom, just like that. That's all it takes. Rewards. So that's 450 experience points. 450 XP. Oops, rewards. Why am I doing that parentheses? 450 XP to split, to split. Welk goo to harvest if they want. There we go. I've got one player in one of my campaigns that will absolutely do that. He tries to harvest everything. It's a little sociopathic, to be perfectly honest. Oh yeah, that's right. So this is going to be our deadly combat, and this one is just going to be, this one's easy. I do know how we're going to do this one. This one is going to be chock full of just the little homunculi. I keep calling them homunculi. That's not what they actually are. Homunculus is an actual thing. So it's just going to be full of the Dolgrims. So marker 5. In the hey, don't you do that. Don't you do that. You know better. You don't tear apart the couch. Get out of there. Go on. My apologies. The cat, despite being fed, decided that she's just in the mood to be a little butthead and was going to scratch up the recliner over there. Like, what? She's never been allowed to do that. She knows she can't do that. She still tries it once or twice a week. It's probably because she just ate, and so now she's all wound up. She just gets like super wound up whenever she eats. She's like a child. You're acting like an animal. This cat just wrecks me. I'm also clearly a little insane. Okay, in the removed caverns in the removed, we're gonna say the removed tunnels along the southwest corner of the caverns, there is a small entrance to a colony of Dolgrim. If threatened, they will seal the entrance and leave a contingency of guards in the hallways to fight off any perceived invaders. Boom. There we go. There we go. I'm gonna really piss my players off if I say that they can't enter the place that they seal off. But you know what? Sometimes that's just how things go. So enemies. Alright, enemies. So it's just going to be the Dolgrim, and the other handy thing about using Kobold Fight Club is, let's see, so I know it's 1/2. Just going to do minimum CRs 1/2. Sorry, my cat was scratching something. I had to make sure it was something she was allowed to scratch. And then we just add however many 1/2s it takes to get us up to the deadly. So 8. So 8 Dolgrims. That's what we'll do. It's harsh. It's harsh, but they can take it. And if they can't, they can run away. Enemies. 8x. Just copy our Dolgrim here. Boom. 8 Dolgrims. I mean, it better be difficult. They're going to get 800 experience for that crap. Well, 800 to split. Not 800 a pop. God, can you imagine if I was handing out that kind of experience? I could level 20 in 7 sessions. It'd be ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Rewards. 8 hundo XP to split. Let's see here. What else can they get? There's not really anything that the Dolgrims can really drop for them. Pull up the Dolgrim stat sheet again and just take a peek at them so make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Stoopy-doopy-doopy-doopy-doo. Text my internet as much as possible. Make it as challenging for my computer to handle everything as possible. Monsters. Search Dolgrim. Look at that. Look at that thing. Look at how fucked up that thing is. Essentially 2 goblins crushed into 1 creature. Yeah, it's pretty wretched. Pretty wretched. Small aberration, chaotic evil, spear, hand crossbow, morning star, multi-attack. Yeah, there's like nothing. There's nothing. So yeah, so for a reward, give them that XP and the regret of not holding the door open before they sealed it to confirm that there is indeed absolutely nothing of value to be taken from these little wretches. There we go. Like I say, I like to give myself little jokes here and there just to amuse myself while I'm playing. Ah, boy. Okay, and then now marker number 6. Going to be the boss combat. The boss combat. Bada bing, bada boom, baby. Now is where we get to do the real coup de grace, so to speak. This large cavern has only one way in or out. It is pitch black in here, and when players enter, they can we'll say occasionally hear what sounds like clicking or shuffling noises, as if something is moving against the rocks. Boom, we'll just do that. Just give them the sense that there's something sinister happening. Let's see here. Enemies. So, we need to, again, so this is going to be a deadly encounter, but it's going to be including, let's just take all of these away. So we'll go ahead and make our max CR 2. Let's see, we'll just do 2 and 2 just so we can put a level 2 in there, and now 1/8. So there's the Kruthix, the Whelks, and the other buttheads, but we're just gonna try. Let's see, how many Kruthix can I put in here before it becomes deadly? Ooh, that's a lot of Kruthix. I don't know, that might be too many Kruthix. So we want those, and then let's go ahead and put quarter for our bone whelks here. And see what we got. So I'm just choosing a random thing because I'm only caring about the CR here. I don't care what the actual monsters are. I don't know that I've ever actually explicitly explained that. I don't care what the monsters are. The CR is what controls how difficult the battle is. I mean, the abilities and stuff of any monster impact that a little bit based on the group, but just when it comes to a rough and dirty estimate, I stick with the CRs and don't worry about much else. So if we've got CR4, CR1 quarter, let's see, so that gives us 10 enemies, which is kind of what I try to put the maximum at there. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, where it's like it's the flying horror. And then, you know, they also will have to deal with all of the whelks and stuff that are kind of existing in here. Could do it that way too, just to kind of balance it a little bit, not have too many enemies coming in and out. What would happen if we? No, wrong way. Puts us exactly at deadly to do it that way. If we just do all kinds of the bone whelks. No, you know, I like the idea of there being some being a few different. This is a boss battle after all. There's nothing wrong with there being a lot of enemies, a lot for them to have to deal with. I don't want to shy away from taking advantage of the sort of soft maximum of 10 enemies. Not for a boss battle. Maybe if it were an easy battle, I'd rein it in a bit. But for the boss battle, I think it's appropriate. Boss battle is meant to be hard. It's meant to be frightening. It's meant to be almost too much for them. So we're going to do... It's 4 of the young Kruthix. Let's just copy that and paste it, just because it's easier that way. Always go with quicker and easier if you can. Avoid reinventing that wheel. Okay, so 4 young Kruthix, 5 of the bone whelks, 5 of the bone whelk, and then 1 of the where's my stuff here? 1 of the flying horrors. There we go. Alright. Let's see. There's one thing that I want to do here. The flying horror was in charge of this battle. Nothing attacks until it does. So I want this to be like led by the flying horror. And I also, the other thing that I want to do, monsters, especially the flying horror, will try to block the only exit so players cannot escape. Escape! Escape. That's just awkward that I typed that, because I hate when people say escape. It's escape, not escape. Dang it. Makes me think of the, what was it? It was the SNL bit with Eddie Murphy back in the day where he was Mr. Robinson. What's today's word, children? Today's word is Xmas. He's got like the letter X and then miss for like the Christmas special. And then all of a sudden his landlord bangs on the door. That reminds me of another word, children. Escape. And then he jumps out the window. Alright, yeah. Yeah, see? Okay, so that's good. And so now we got to do the rewards. So now for this one, let's see here. So the total experience they can gain here. So we've got 250 from the bone whelks, another 100 from the Kruthix, so that's 350. So 1,050. 1,050 XP to split. Harvest monster bits. Let's see, we'll do poison stuff, DC 12. And then I also, for the flying horror, it's a fun word to try and enunciate. Horror. 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 We're going to come into the stream and be like, what is this idiot doing? Just saying the word horror over again, like a weirdo. Let's see here. Let's see here. Flying horror wings. So they wanted to try and take the leather from those things. DC 12. We'll do that. And that reminds me, I need to do, for this one, well, go to harvest, we need to do DC 12 again. And then this one again, DC 12. There we go. Just so that way I remember quick and easy what the results are going to be there. So, okay. So, that gives us all of our combats. So now is the challenge. I have to think about a puzzle here. So the puzzle is going to be very Indiana Jonesy, right? That was what I kind of predetermined. Is it's going to be, because that's the nature of this. This isn't a situation in which we have like intentionally created traps or anything like that. I want this to be very much a just a naturally occurring area. So I'm gonna create a system of some sort that will encourage them to have to avoid like a cave-in or something is what I want to do. And I'm going to, just to sort of get the creative juices flowing here, we're going to pull out my tool that I like to use. I've brought it up before, but when I'm trying to come up with puzzles and traps, and I want to try and keep things fresh rather than just always utilizing the same things, like, oh, see if they, can do a perception check to notice the tripwire that's on the floor and stuff like that. Like, it just gets so stale if it's always the same stuff. And I think pretty much every DM has the tendency to kind of immediately think of this, that, or the other type of trap. I think everyone's probably got the bread and butter type of traps, and I think it's hard to break free of our own habits with those. So what I do to avoid that is I have a deck of cards, and what I have done with this deck of cards is I have on each one written a skill check that they would have to make. And the actual card that it's on, it doesn't matter, because each skill check is represented 3 times in here. I added one, I think it was 3, it was either 2 or 3 times, I forget. An even number of times. I utilized one of the jokers as well to make sure it was the right number. Or maybe it was both jokers. I don't know. Point is, each thing is represented an equal number of times in this deck. And all I do is I shuffle it up, and I draw 3. And the idea is, whatever those 3 skills are, those are the skills. Somehow in those skills, if players can, the puzzle is designed in a way that might lean players towards using those skills to creatively problem solve, and if they do use those, they're rewarded. The creativity and thinking clearly about the issue, at least as it's designed, rewards them an easy DC for the saves. Anything else would require a hard DC, but can still potentially solve it as long as they're being creative about it. So that's kind of how I use the system to create it. So we're going to draw our 3 cards here. So we've got an intimidation. Somehow I'll have to figure out how they can use an intimidation to solve the puzzle. I don't know how they're going to do that one. Religion. And athletics. So somehow we're going to create a puzzle that can lend itself to using those things. And this is where it's going to get tricky. So my immediate thought is we can combine the religion and intimidation. And just for clarity, they don't have to succeed at 3 things necessarily to solve the puzzle. It's just that the puzzle, or the trap, or whatever it is, has 3 aspects or 3 approaches in some way, shape, or form that can utilize these. I'll often try to make it so that they would have to use all 3 to really solve the puzzle, but it's meant to be a loose fit type of thing so that they can figure out what it is. But that said, I'm immediately thinking about our intimidation and our religion and thinking that there's probably a way I can combine those 2 into a singular element. And then athletics. So my immediate thought here is sitting. Dang it! Why did it take away my bullet? Sitting in the center of a large cavern is a singular statue. So my immediate thought here is I'm making this very Lovecraftian, very mysterious, very strange, a lot of unanswered things in here. So my immediate thought is a singular statue. Upon closer examination, it can be seen that there is something ... organic about this statue. If touched, it is definitely stone, but when viewed out of the corner of one's eye, the statue appears to be a living creature. this creature being, what's something that's kind of fits the Lovecraftian concept here? This creature being I'm thinking just like some sort of like grotesque zombie type thing, like half goat, half demon. Maybe too would work, but like a zombie type thing would be almost fitting. Creature, hold on, I shouldn't put a period there. Hold on. This creature. This creature being some sort of undead looking humanoid, though a specific race or level of decay is impossible to determine. Okay. So there's some sort of like twisted, messed up, like magical statue here. Let's see here. If players make a religion check, they will discover, let's see, if they make religion check, they will know that this seems to be, I don't know, I feel like I should iron out exactly what it is. So I'm feeling like it's a statue. The trapeze is sentient, there's a heavy boulder next to it. PCs can lift it up. If the check is succeeded, otherwise you have some pedals next to the boulder. If they lift it to try and use it on the trap becomes intimidated and disarms itself. I'll pray to some evil deity which can be resolved by praying. Okay, there's some good stuff in there. Like I say, the hard part for me is I don't want it to be an explicit trap. I want this to have come up naturally, because so within this world, with the unhinging, a lot of weird fucked up shit has appeared in this world. And so my thought is, with this like statue that appears to be living, is my thought is that it's like some sort of demon or something that's stuck in limbo. And so with religion or intimidation, they can either, like with religion check, they can identify this as a demon and offer up a prayer that will banish it. They can intimidate it in terms of just like, you know, scared, like they can try to intimidate this being if they wanted to force it to, you know, stop trying to enter the mortal plane. Because what my thought is, it was a demon that tried to enter through like a micro tear in the universe or something like that to enter, and that's what it's trying to do. And so if they like intimidate it, it will retreat and it'll just become a truly stone statue or something. And then the athletics, I'm thinking they can just, if they want to, lift the thing up and chuck it, you know, and destroy it. The problem is, if it's just sitting there, then there's not necessarily any consequences for ignoring it or failing any of these. And for it to be a proper puzzle or trap, there needs to be some sort of either consequences for avoiding it or a reward for solving it. Let's see here. So, okay, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to add some horror to this. We're definitely going to add some horror to this. Hold on. Okay, we don't need to be looking at the map right now, so I'm just going to make this easier to edit the text here. Let's see here. If players look away and try to leave, the statue creature will follow them. And it never, and what I'm thinking is we can really mess with their heads. The consequence is simply the thing following. The thing following, and if they're trying to sneak, the thing has follow them with heavy stone footsteps. So now it's like they can pray the demon out of the statue. They can intimidate it to make it stop following them, because the demon's trying to follow them to either convince them to release it or trick them into releasing it into the mortal plane. Or they can do a strength check, which is just to straight up destroy the statue. And if they destroy that, they would destroy its mortal tie. So that's what I'm thinking right now. But yeah, with the heavy footsteps, they won't know that this seems to be a demon from the 9 hells, and that a proper prayer will banish the demon from this mortal tether. There we go. If players intimidate Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we can add some sort of like compulsion to it or something like that. Just add like a reactionary wisdom check or something like that. So when players enter, they would have to make a wisdom check. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. I like that. I like that. Let's see here. When players enter, they must make a wisdom save. We'll just make that an average, a DC 11. Any C11, anyone who fails is compelled to approach and examine the statue. And it's like that simple. It's that simple. Right? That's like, and sometimes I think like having it be that simple is almost more ominous than if there's like some sort of obvious thing, because when it's not obvious, you know, when it's not obvious to what end, like if it's just like it compels them to approach and look at it, and once they've satisfied that, there's nothing compelling them to do anything anymore, it's almost more unnerving to players. So we can really play some fun mind games that way. So let's see here. The demon, it will stop following them. So let's see, wait, hold on. Just make a religion check. I need to make sure I'm remembering our DC. And so the point of these are the ways to earn an easy one. Intimidate. Oops. Intimidate. DC 10. Athletics. You know, I'm thinking with athletics, it's almost more like the statue is slow, so an athletics check DC 10. So it's not even about breaking it. It's an athletics check DC 10 will let them run away and ditch the statue in the tunnels. So you just like flat out run away. You know, why not? Why not? If they actually think to try and do that. Players ignore it. No, it will follow them indefinitely. So they have to eventually succeed in stopping the thing from following them, otherwise it will continue to do that. So that's another thing that I think is really funny about this one. It's almost funny and amusing. It's like a cursed item, and it will follow them until they figure out some way to dispel it or get rid of it, which I think is really funny, because depending on what they think of in terms of trying to solve it, they could make things really difficult for themselves if you know, they keep failing checks and none of them bothers to try any of these specific things. Because like if they come up with another idea to try and handle it, they certainly can try that. But if they fail, the thing's going to keep following them. And I like the idea of them like 7 sessions later, you know, getting on a boat to get off the island, and there's this weird creepy ass statue that's still following them, and they just like get numb to its presence. I can definitely see that being amusing. Rewards. Let's see here. If they if they banish the demon through religion, players can have 500 XP to split. So that's what we'll do as a reward. Because I like to offer up rewards that are not like experience opportunities to get experience that aren't tied to combat, just so that way it's not like players feel like there's a compulsion to have to always fight everything. I want them to feel like it's worthwhile to avoid, which is why a lot of times too, once they leave a dungeon, oh man, I'm so good. I just caught a fruit fly. It was awesome. Once they leave a dungeon, I'll give them at least a portion of the experience from the combats that they avoided. Like if they manage to sneak through an area and avoid combat, I don't feel like they should be punished for that by not getting the XP. So I'll usually give them at least half, if not all, depending on the level of the dungeon and the level of the players and all that kind of stuff. So marker 8, the twist. So this is the one we had talked about, not yesterday, on Monday. I talked about, I was feeling like this would be a good candidate for being some chained up NPCs. So the first cavern within this mine is large and echoey. There we go. Lying all around are various piles of mostly decayed mining tools. This area was clearly used as a staging area for the rest of the mining operations. Let's see here. Now I want to pull up the map again and just see. Okay, so I want to describe all of these. So ground level doors to the north, east, and west. I mean, yeah, if they were to try and swim away, then yeah, that would change things. I would imagine that if they try to do that, they could lose it. That's assuming they don't find a way. There's no water in the mine itself, so if they move on to the Pirate Cove area where there's water, or try and leave the island via swimming, then yeah, that could potentially be a way to ditch it. No problems with that. And then there's just like the sad demon statue left standing on the beach or something like that. That'd be kind of interesting. But then that would be kind of a fun thing, because then if they ever come back, it could still be waiting there. You know, you just make a note of that, so if they ever go back to that island, there's that statue waiting for them or something like that. Yeah, no, I would say that would probably be an appropriate way for them to get away. And that's the type of solution that I would improvise and let them, you know, even if they have to make checks for something like that, I would say the check is just to run up onto the ship and then drop the ladder or whatever they used so that the statue can't follow. So the operations, there are ground level exits to this. Yeah, well, see, and that's the thing. Depending on how they interpret it, they could definitely find benefit, or just like accept that they have this demon statue, because while the demon does have its goal of trying to figure out how to utilize them to escape into the mortal world, the fact is it's just like, it's like frozen in this weird state of limbo as a statue, and so it would take some serious time and thinking on the demon's part to try and figure out how it would even accomplish that. So while it's sinister, it's still harmless, and I think that's hilarious. Let's see here. So there are 3 to this room to the north, east, and west. On the east wall, roughly 30 feet up, there is a gap that leads to the sloped tunnel that is the entrance to the mine. Boom. Alright, and then chained up along the southern wall are two individuals. Let's see here. These are the servants enslaved to the Cyclops that were captured during his last hunt and chained, and imprisoned for his amusement. And then, so now here's where, like I was talking about, this is where I'll offer a little bit of detail for our NPCs here. So another tool of mine here, we're going to go fantasy name generators. It's one of my favorite tools. I love this one. So we're going to go with real names here, which is usually what I like to do. And we're just going to choose, Puritan names. I like that idea. Just give them like really basic Puritan names. Restore Wallington, Safe Deliverance, Wealthy Dodd, Thanks Abbott. I changed my mind. I don't want to do that. Real names. Let's just go with let's just find some English names. Let's just do it. Some American names. Neutral names. Ashton and Denny. I like that. Alright, we're going to go with Ashton and Denny. And we're going to keep them ambiguous too. Make them twins, how about? Let's see here. The two chained up are Ashton and Denny. They are twins who were hired. They are, let's see here, we're going to do, they are teenage twin humans who were hired as deck hands on Ignatius' ship to transport him and the rest of his servants to his island during the unhinging. They are defiant and in nature, which is how they were caught in the first place when they chose to try to fight the Cyclops rather than running. They are beaten, hungry and thirsty, but alive and capable of walking if freed. Boom. Okay, there we go. Now we got some NPCs, some interesting stuff. They can offer some information, you know, and that's the type of stuff that I'll just kind of role play there. They can maybe give some information about what's in the mine or what they've heard in the mine. You know, they can offer up a thing like, oh, we swear we hear flapping from time to time, like, uh-oh, there's something that flies in here, and there's our, you know, clue about our flying horror and stuff like that. So let's see here. So yeah, that's all we really need there. That's all we really need there. So now, our reward, which is in this situation, let's see here. So, this room is mostly hidden by a door composed of multiple rocks bound together with a type of of, we'll just say type of plaster. Let's see here. Upon opening oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, so it just like slowly, like sinisterly, you know, absorbs their rest so they can never stop being exhausted until they get rid of it. That's another good idea. That's another good idea. See, and that's the kind of stuff where it's like I like having those ideas. I appreciate those. And what I'll do is I'll kind of keep those. You know what? I like that. I like that. The players try to take a long rest, it will select one at random to feed off of. That player will not receive the benefits of a long rest and will gain a point of exhaustion. So if we make it one random player, that definitely will make it so that it's not an urgent thing, but it's constantly there dragging them down until they figure out how to deal with it. I smell what you're stepping in there. I like it. I really like it. So I'm stealing it, because this is what I do. I steal everything. But in exchange, you can steal any of the ideas that I share here. It's all about creating fun games for players. That's what it comes down to. Let's hear. Upon opening the door, they will see a small cavern with a large chest inside of it. Carved on the chest is the insignia of Zarus. Insignia of Zarus. Yeah. Yeah, it buys players more time, and the thing is like if it's just randomly a different player each time, it could randomly be the same player multiple times, and they keep getting worse and worse exhaustion. And the other thing about it too that I think is cool about that is because it's sinister, the players will likely figure out that it's the statue causing that exhaustion. But if it's just one player, and if like the statue doesn't make any sort of outward expression of sapping the energy from the players, then they might not realize it's the statue immediately that does it, because it's only one player. They might think there's something else going on, which sort of adds to that like creeping, sinister nature of it. All right, so let's see here. So it's already 5:15. I'm getting hungry, man. If I'm keeping on schedule for my evening, I gotta eat soon, but that's okay. Carved on the chest is the insignia of Zara. This is one of his many treasures he has hidden around the world. Let's see here. So, discovering the door requires a passive perception of 12 or a perception / investigation check DC 12. So they have to have a 12 or better to be able to see it and realize that that's what this is. Rewards. So here's where we're going to go to our rating consistency guidelines here. So let's see, this is a starting out thing up to 1800 gold. Normally I would roll for it, but considering this is literally meant to be a treasure, we're going to go ahead and give them the 1800 gold. We're just going to give it to them flat out. 1800. So it's 1800 gold in value. We're going to do 1000 GP in gold coins of varying histories and nations. do that. Ultimately, it's all gold coins that would be worth 1,000 gold coins, but it's like meant to show that he was doing a world conquest and got coins from all over the place. 400 GP value in gems, and then we'll do 400 GP in the form of various trinkets and jewelry, parentheses, goblets, crowns, rings, etc. So we'll do that, and then I'm thinking also with this one, I want to give them like an enchantment token. So I'm just gonna choose a random spell here for that. Game rules, spells, view all. I'm gonna choose a random level 1 spell. Level first. Filter the spells. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20. So there's 20 per page. There's 4 pages. I'm just thinking I'm going to do a random roll here. Well, here's what we'll do. We're going to roll a d4. See, this is where it gets fun. We're going to roll a d4 for the page, and then we'll roll a d20 or something less if it's the 4th page for what number it is. So we're going to use my desert themed 4-sided. It's page 4. We're going to the back here. I'm throwing my dice. I don't know where that one landed. Oh, it landed on my shirt. Got it. Okay, so we're going to the 4th page. How many does it have on the 4th page here? Oh, fair number. Alright, we're just going to roll a d20. And if it's like 20 and there isn't actually 20 of them, then we'll do it. So we're just going to pull out the standard silver metal die for the d20. Number 12, so the 12th spell down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Ha! Alright, there it is. There it is. Enchantment token containing Tasha's Hideous Laughter. An enchantment token containing Tasha's hideous laughter. It's good. Gosh, Tasha's hideous laughter is a good spell. So there we go. Okay, so that's the rewards. That's the rewards that they'll find in his treasure chest. Nothing wrong with that. And so now this last one here, we're going to finish this one up and then call it a session here. This last room, this is, remember, our safe room. This is the room where they can barricade. So a large room that appears to have been used for storage of spare materials used for shoring up walls and tunnels. Piles of wood and wood, nails, and brackets for assembling supports. Something that supports lie around here. Just realized I need to bullet point this because I'm obsessed with having everything look proper, right? Everything needs to look thematic, whatever it is. Uniform. That's the word I'm looking for. Uniform. These materials could easily be used to barricade the single northern passageway to the room, providing a safe place to rest if needed. There we go. And there we have pretty much an assembled dungeon. I have this section here, potential outcomes. Here's what we will do. Potential outcomes, the actual, we leave that blank. This is where, so this is how I like to put notes. I haven't really talked about this before. As part of the world building process, I like to include notes on what happens when players visit, because I always have in my mind, I have 2 campaigns going that are largely in the same world. One of them, we are following a module, but I'm kind of rolling the module into my world, so that way when they finish the module, they can keep playing with the same characters that they felt like it. There are different parts of the world, but if they ever encounter parts of the world, I like the idea of having a living world where it's like, you know, both of my campaigns actually exist in the same game space, and they can encounter things that, you know, each other have caused. So that's why I put the notes here. Potential outcomes, let's see here. So we're just going to say potential outcomes, finding and cleaning out the treasure. And then the other potential outcome here is aiding the captured NPCs. If and then what we'll do here is if players ignore them, may contribute to bad blood between PCs and NPCs. There we go. NPCs. There we go. There. So now we've got just some ideas of potential things there. And then this last thing I do, a link index, for if I'm feeling particularly cohesive with everything. If I'm adding lore notes and stuff like that, I'll add links to these other pages to here, as well as links to maybe web pages if I pull something off there. Just have that there so that way I can have a quick clicking option for finding most of the other things. So, but there we go. That's it. That's pretty much it. Pretty much done with the dungeon. There is one more step that I'm going to do, but I will save this for next time because it'll be quick. I have not added any sort of items or objects to this map. Oh yeah, the sinister statue. Good call. Good call. We should put that in there for potential outcomes. Players could destroy or acquire the demon statue. Good call. I appreciate the reminder. So now we're pretty much done with it. I do want to add just some details, some objects and stuff, various stones and stuff, so that players can use them if they're in combat as cover, things like that. But I wasn't really thinking about it today. It's no problem. We'll just do that next time. I don't think there's even anything to save here, but we'll do it just to be safe. Save, yes, overwrite. So that we can worry about on Friday, because that'll be a quick thing to finish up, and then we can do some fun lore stuff on Friday. So yeah, so there we go. That's I'm thinking that feels like a pretty good stream, well accomplished there. So yeah, that'll do it. Appreciate all the people that stopped by. Had some fun conversations, some good idea bouncing back and forth. It's a good session. I really enjoy doing this stuff. This is what I love about streaming, is just sharing my hobbies and the things that I enjoy with other people. It was like I was talking about at the very beginning when I first started. Like, that's what this is about to me. This isn't me trying to make a career out of being a streamer or a YouTuber or anything like that. It's just a matter of wanting to find more people that I can, share my hobbies with, because this is what I do to unwind from all my day job and the stresses, and I think it's a fun way to sort of share that stuff with the rest of the world. So I'm having a blast with it. I'm having a good time, and we're making fun stuff so that way I can have a good time, on the weekends when I play D&D with people. I mean, there's just so many cool things about this, and I dig it. So yes, thank you to everyone who stopped by. Thank you to anyone who's watching the replay, because I am posting this up on my YouTube channel like I always do. It'll be there if anyone ever wants to go back and watch it because they remember that I had an idea in one of these and they wanted to see it, or whatever reasons people have for listening to me ramble. More than welcome to, and thank you for checking the replay if that's what you're doing. But yeah, I guess at this point we'll call it a stream. So thanks a million times again. I know I've already said it a million times. I'll keep saying it. Go out there. Go do some good things. Bring some goodness to the world. Be good to each other. And we'll see you next time. Tomorrow at some point we will be streaming. Hard to say. I do have another afternoon meeting, so I don't know exactly when I'll be streaming. I'm planning on streaming. It'll be Borderlands stream. Friday definitely will have an afternoon stream. My intention is for that one to be a little more on the early afternoon side, and then Friday evening I will be doing my evening gaming. Wait, no, Friday is writing. Saturday is the evening gaming schedule. Ha! I got there. I remember my own schedule. I should really put my money where my mouth is and start putting that on my channel. One of these days I'll get it done. But until then, go out, be good to each other, spread some goodness in the world, and we will see you next time. So thanks for stopping by.